Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode 100. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. And what an episode 100 it is. Dave, I have three words for you. I'm tired, boss. It has been another insane, jam-packed day. Dave and I are actually recording this here late Tuesday night because who knows what we'll wake up to on Wednesday morning. Patrick Queen, Deontae Johnson, and it feels like weeks they signed the punter, Cameron Johnston. So, Dave, I don't know where to begin other than to say, oh my God, it's been insane, and hopefully we're all still hanging in there.
Yeah, and we're recording this as you stated late Tuesday night. Get it up at midnight. Give the people something to listen to because so much has happened there, and maybe nothing else will happen the rest of the night here. But if it does, we'll break it live during the podcast here. Where would you like to start? You want to start with the most recent thing, the trade?
Yeah, I think we have to start with Deontae Johnson, and that was the giant news that came in Tuesday evening. Deontae Johnson being traded to the Carolina Panthers for cornerback Dante Jackson, also a late day 3 pick swap. Pittsburgh will send their 7th round pick, number 240, to Carolina, and Carolina will send a 6th round pick number 178 to Pittsburgh. But the headline here is Deontae Johnson out of Pittsburgh. I'll admit it, I was wrong. I thought he was going to stay. Certainly when Pittsburgh was interviewing all those first-round candidate wide receivers at the Combine, I perked up a little bit, and the rumors have kind of been percolating around Deontae and a possible deal, and I had Brian Thomas for first round of my last mock draft on Monday, but I still thought Deontae would stay. Now he's on his way out. Deal will become official tomorrow when the new league year opens up, but essentially this thing is a done deal, Dave.
Yeah, surprise, I guess you can chalk this another one up to where there's smoke, there might be fire. And you can even go back to the Chase Claypool. Remember that off season, the summer before the Chase Claypool deal? I think it was Jeremy Fowler had that article about the Steelers might be interested in moving Chase Claypool. And obviously throughout several of these recent shows, we've been talking about the idea or the speculation that that Deontae Johnson was on the trading block, and then obviously you had the deal of who was it that was dealt the other day to wide receiver?
Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, Jerry Jeudy, and we thought about, man, look at the return for that, and what would it take for the Steelers to get rid of Deontae Johnson, and well. Long story short, where there was smoke, there was the fire, and that fire came to a robust point on Tuesday evening there. So, where do you want to start? The why?
Yeah, let's start with the why. Why do you think this trade happened? This is a Steelers team that just added Russell Wilson. I wonder what he thinks about things right now in terms of the guys he'll be throwing to in 2024. For an offense that needs momentum, needs production. You just traded one of your starting wide receivers who's been very productive at his best with really no depth behind. So why did this deal occur?
Well, I don't know exactly why, but we'll speculate here. That's what we do. Very good route runner. Obviously had problems with some drops at times through his career. Not very great after the catch. In this offense moving forward with Arthur Smith, probably going to want somebody more willing to block. I don't know how much of maybe Deontae Johnson maybe wanting out had to do with this, if anything. I just think they want a different type of receiver to go along in this offense. Additionally, Deontae was in the final year of his contract. There's been all that kind of kind of wondering, is he headed for a hold in or a hold out? And, maybe he's not totally happy with the quarterback situation, or definitely probably wasn't coming out of last year. I think you add all those things up, and I think you even add in for a spice of to make it taste better. Going back to that older quote, oldish kind of quote that you had from Arthur Smith, and you want to rewind to what that was.
Sure. This was in his first year in Atlanta, to be clear. So this was not a comment that was made after being, hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers, but he was asked about in a coaching clinic, how do you handle guys in your team that don't buy into the culture, that aren't physical, that don't play with tremendous effort, that won't block for teammates, that won't do all the detail and little things? And Smith's answer, I'm taking an excerpt from it, but he said, quote, "We won't play them. I'll look to get guys out of there." Now, again, that was in Atlanta in 2021 as the head coach, but you do wonder, whenever Smith evaluated the rosters, I'm sure that he did, prior to and then after being hired by Pittsburgh, you sit there and say, does this guy fit within your offense? And on a baseline level, well, Deontae, I think, is super talented and a really good receiver and a fantastic route runner. Does he check the boxes of somebody that's super physical and plays with great effort and shows consistent selflessness? I think the easy answer and the obvious answer is that no, he does not. So you may look to move on, coupled with the reasons you mentioned. Maybe he wanted out. Maybe he wanted a fresh start. Last year of his contract, uncertain future beyond that. And it just felt like there's been a lot of tension with Deontae. And last year was a lot of tension with the offense in general because of how poor it was and Canada-related things. But it just always felt like there was some sort of tension within that organization, in that locker room, as it related to Deontae Johnson. And this may be a fresh start for everybody.
Then you throw in new wide receivers coach Zach Azzanni and his kind of supposed no-nonsense, leave your feelings at the door kind of approach. And, I think one of the goals of this offense with Arthur Smith, too, is to hopefully try to attack the middle of the field more. And it's not necessarily one of Deontae's greater strengths overall, especially when you talk about, quick slants and, maybe making some business decisions within there at times. I'm not going to use this to dump on Deontae. Let's make this clear right now. I think Deontae's a very talented receiver. I think he's one of the best separators when it comes to NFL wide receivers. I think it's a lot of what you said. This is not the kind of wide receiver that the Steelers are looking to move forward with when it comes to what they're hoping this offense will be. And I think that's sort of the long and short of it here. And plus, look, his deal was up after this year. That's a great wide receiver class, and who knows what else they might add here now in free agency on top of that to give them more of the type receiver that they're looking for. So I think you add all of those things up that we covered, not one specific thing, but maybe take bits and pieces of all of it. I think that's how you come up with the why.
It may be an element of we want volunteers, not hostages, the old Tomlin mantra. If Deontae had some sort of inkling for maybe I want to go somewhere else, then Pittsburgh, probably more so than almost any franchise in the NFL, is willing to get rid of guys who just don't want to be here anymore. They're not going to hold on to them, especially for guys last year, their deal. But ultimately, the question becomes, Dave, is Pittsburgh a better roster post-trading Deontae Johnson or not? And I got to do some work on Dante Jackson. I've been doing that right now. Just got one game in before we jump on the podcast here. But my concern is the conclusion will be that Pittsburgh is now a worse roster without Deontae Johnson.
Can I answer that question after the draft and after free? Can I punt?
Well, it's important because there is a big picture. They're not playing tomorrow, and we need to see the whole process. But when you make a trade, you sit there and say, did you just get better or did you just get worse? And there's probably a good argument to be made that you just got worse.
Right. As the roster stands right now, just from a depth and ability standpoint, it's not better. I mean, you took an experienced guy out of the room, and you really only have him, and obviously, the amount of ball that George Pickens has played to this point, left at this point. Now, Calvin Austin, we're still trying to figure out who Calvin Austin is and what he can do as well. We just don't have enough sample size on him overall, but he is a smaller type receiver. And, what we have seen is what we get so far, I guess, when it comes to Calvin Austin. So, one for one, I mean, immediately after this deal, is a wide receiver room better? No, but it's also, it gets an incomplete grade right now as well too. And undoubtedly, I think you're going to see this team sign a wide receiver here in free agency and draft one as well too. And then at that point, we can say, remember back when we talked right after the Diontae trade, is the wide receiver group better or worse? Well, then we'll have the conversation again, I think.
Sure. Again, there's a totality to this process because this offseason is a process. It's not just one day, and we're not even officially at the start of the new league year. Although obviously agreements have been made across the board, and a lot of there weren't a lot of top receivers in free agency to begin with. A lot of them got tagged or re-upped, and T. Higgins, who's potentially on the move, but obviously won't come to Pittsburgh. Michael Pittman getting tagged, and Mike Evans re-signing in Tampa Bay. But still, I mean, I think, the assets you got back from Carolina, they are what they are. I mean, Dante Jackson is who he is, and the draft picks, you're not going to find probably the next AD with that 6th-round pick you're getting back. So if they had gotten back a 2nd-round pick, you might say, well, I have more draft capital now to go get a receiver. They're going to have to spend capital on a receiver that may have been able to be used somewhere else.
Yeah, and I haven't gone. How much work have you done on Jackson yet? Because I haven't cracked his tape yet. We've been so busy. To me, this is a guy. If you go back to just a few weeks ago, David Newton from ESPN. This is a guy that was supposedly likely to get cut here before his $4 million roster bonus was due on March 16th. Has battled some injuries. The word was that he might be traded or cut. So, that's kind of where the Panthers organization was with him. And, obviously he brings with him a salary cap charge of, a little more than $10 million here on top of it. So it's not like, at least initially, and we're going to have a talk about this in a minute, at least initially, you're not getting cap relief. If anything, you lost a little more than $500,000 in cap space by making this move. But I think this is another thing that it's to be continued when it comes to that. So it almost feels like Dante Jackson helps fill a hole in that room, and it's to be determined about what he can be for you. And obviously, there's still a good chance that this team drafts a wide receiver that winds up. Let's say he starts. There's a good chance that at least maybe you don't have to hurry along a rookie cornerback at this point if you feel comfortable where Dante Jackson's ability, health, and schematic fit and all like that. So and then once again, you traded. You swapped a 7th and a 6th, so you got a little bit of gain there, I guess, at its core. And then Dante's contract's up after this year, so you don't gain anything, at least initially, with contract length, right? So, what was the question? I mean,
well, you asked me about how much Jackson that I'd seen. I've only watched one game. He's athletic. I mean, he was a great athletic freak at LSU. Ran 4.31. I think he's a gambler. From a limited view that I've seen so far, I'll have a report Wednesday morning. Not the best tackler overall. Outside corner. I know he's on the smaller side, but he's been an outside corner his entire NFL career. But good athlete, and will be, I think, on the outside opposite Porter Jr., which will take some of the pressure off the immediate need that was outside corner prior to this trade.
Is this just a situation of two guys needing out of the situations that they're in for whatever reasons? And both teams, look, I mean, the Steelers still need to fill a wide receiver spot, and the Panthers are still going to need to fill a corner spot, and the Panthers are likely still to add a receiver on top of it, and the Steelers are still likely to draft a. You see, I'm going here. I mean, are you shifting chairs around to get people in different organizations and hopefully revive their careers?
Yeah, I think fresh starts is probably a good way to couch this trade overall. So yeah, we'll see. I think it takes a bit of the burden off, again, that immediate need for corner, but it races wide receiver to the very tippy top, right up there with center, because you have really no other alternative. I mean, how many guys that have played on Sundays are under contract right now in that Steelers receiver room? It's Pickens, Austin, Dez Fitzpatrick technically played in Tennessee a little bit. I guess Denzel Mims has had a little cup of coffee as he was a high round pick of the Jets, but was a bust there. But point is, it's basically Pickens and a bit of Calvin Austin.
Right. So, I mean, you've created a hole that you've got to fill. And look, you were probably already going to fill that position group via the draft anyway. Now you need multiple, you know.
Right. Well, the concern is, okay, you've created a massive hole at receiver, and you still probably want to draft a corner at some point. To me, it's not that immediate need where it has to be addressed super early, but you probably want an outside corner with Jackson last year of his contract and uncertainty about what you have depth-wise. And you still need a slot corner, too, because you got nothing there. I mean, Sullivan may re-sign at some point here. Patrick Peterson said the door's not closed on his return to Pittsburgh, but who knows what will happen there. So I think the concern is, okay, you've created one massive hole and not really solved another hole in the process. And not gained capital to try to have more chances to fill those holes.
Right, but because of this draft class at wide receiver, is wide receiver the best position group in this draft class? It feels like it is.
I would say that and tackle, maybe receivers slightly better, but those I would say are the strongest two classes.
All right, what's the byproduct of that in free agency here?
Well, the byproduct is I think it's been harder for teams to move receivers. That's why you saw Judy go for a 5 and 6. And, you know, I suppose Pittsburgh got more value in this deal, but I don't know how. I mean, it just depends on how you feel about Dante Jackson, the guy, as you said, was going to be cut had he not been traded to Pittsburgh. So, is that better value than what Denver got for Judy? I would say so, but I guess you could debate it. But yeah, point is, I mean, the receiver free agent class was not strong. And the draft class was great. And I think teams who want a receiver, largely speaking, are just going to go draft somebody.
But to tack on my point there is what's left in free agency here at wide receiver. Are there any nice, shiny Band-Aids to help with this?
Well, the top name, and it's Tuesday night and things are fluid, and I imagine this will be answered soon, but the top name is Calvin Ridley. The reports are that he's deciding between New England and Jacksonville. There was something about the Falcons trade, a condition that I think escalates that pick up if Ridley is either on a roster. I forget the condition, but there's some draft pick consideration there that's kind of a unique angle to this trade that Atlanta made with Jacksonville a while back. But Ridley's a top receiver. And then I'm reading off the list here from Mike Clay, who does a great job of categorizing free agents. Other free agents behind Ridley: Hollywood Brown from Arizona, Michael Thomas from New Orleans, Tyler Boyd from the Bengals, Curtis Samuel from the Commanders.
That's an interesting name.
Yeah, Odell Beckham Jr. from the Ravens, DJ Chark from the Chiefs, Marquez Valdez-Scantling from the Chark was the Panthers. I might have said the Chiefs. Valdez-Scantling from the Chiefs, Peoples-Jones from the Lions, former Cleveland Brown, and old friend Chase Claypool is out there.
What about Laviska Shenault?
I actually put him on my wish list. I mean, Pittsburgh had reportedly had interest in him out of Colorado. Now he has not worked out. He is a very slow. He's not a receiver. To me, I'd move him to running back. I mean, it's kind of what he's become. I mean, I had mentioned Matt Collins a while back. He's not a starter, obviously. He's a backup, but there's an Arthur Smith connection. I mentioned on Twitter Tuesday night, Nick Westbrook-Akine from Tennessee was with Smith in 2020. Big guy, can block, some vertical threat to him. But I think the point is, after Ridley, you start to lose those like clear every down starting receivers.
Right. But I mean, is there enough there of a Band-Aid that fits what you're looking for in the wide receiver room? I'm not talking about a guy that's going to come in and catch 70 balls.
Sure. I mean, they'll go sign somebody, I'm pretty sure. Right. Josh Reynolds, another name from the Lions, kind of a big, long guy that kind of fits the look of the Arthur Smith offense. I mean, they'll sign somebody, but I think you find your starter in the draft.
Right. And the market value would be depressed on these guys we're talking about, too, more than likely.
Sure, and Pittsburgh has cap space.
Yeah, whereas corners, maybe the pickings are even slimmer,
Yeah, I mean, corner, obviously, once, Johnson got tagged and re-upped, and Snead, the report is, so Mike Garafolo, Pittsburgh had talked with the Chiefs about Deontay Johnson. You wonder if they were talking about Snead in some respect. Not that I would have thought, Johnson for Snead straight up, that was not going to happen, but you wonder if that was a potential conversation point. But yeah, I mean, I would say at this point, corner and wide receiver are kind of equal in terms of what's left in free agency.
Okay, let's pivot this way. Before the draft, is there a more than minimum wide receiver and a more than minimum another cornerback on the way to Pittsburgh?
Receiver, I would say yes. Corner, again, you're talking slot versus outside. They got to get a slot corner, I think, unless you're going to go in and really re-sign Sullivan and just hope to draft somebody. An outside corner, probably not after acquiring Jackson. But the slot, I mean, who's your slot corner right now?
Yeah, good question. That's what I'm saying. I think you're going to get one of each in this room. Okay. Above minimum at this point now.
Is there a receiver that you're looking at that you would that makes sense?
I mean, I think you've rattled off a lot of good names there. I think I think the Washington Curtis Samuel is a nice an interesting topic there. I'm trying to roll down some of the other names in here.
Could see Chark.
Yeah, DJ Chark. They had a little bit of passing interest in him, didn't they, in the pre-draft process and all? We just mentioned the other Panthers wide receiver on the outs. I like your suggestion of who was it? Where is he?
Hollins and Westbrook Akine.
Yeah, Westbrook Akine are options there. I think there's several that could fit the bill here. What's the status of your buddy Van Jefferson?
Well, he got traded over from the Rams to Atlanta. I hadn't followed him too much with the Falcons. I don't think he was super productive. Was he more of a slot guy, or I hadn't followed?
I haven't followed either. I can't remember if maybe he got injured last year or not. That's why I'm asking, because you were kind of high on him, and didn't they have a little bit of interest in him? I mean, we're just throwing mud at the wall at this. Long story short, one of these guys are going to add.
Sure, they will add a receiver, but unless it's Ridley, I don't think it's a starting caliber guy. I think the draft is where that comes from, and I think Pittsburgh at the combine.
I think they do, but I mean, I think they're going to draft one too. I'm not
but it's a question of where do they draft somebody.
Oh, I think it could be anywhere at this point. Your first round pick in your latest mock is looking a lot more plausible at this point.
Right.
Look, anybody you sign at corner or wide receiver, I would think at this point still does not prevent you from taking that position in the first 4 rounds of the draft.
I agree for sure. And that's the critique of the Johnson trade is, okay, you got significantly worse at receiver and you got a bit better at corner, but it's still a need. So how much of a service did you do yourself in the process?
Okay. Yeah.
That's the angle at least you can take. And I got to watch Jackson more. I mean, I mean, there's some talent there. I think he can run. I think he's athletic. I think he can, be physical and press from the limited view that I've seen so far. And it does, again, lessen that burden some. One thing I'll tell you off the top is I think Dan Moore's your left tackle next year, because I don't think they can go out there and draft a tackle early, because you got receiver and you got center and you got corner and right now safety to all look at right now for this team to address.
Well, I mean, we've been kind of talking to try to prep people on that anyway, right?
Sure. I mean, Omar Khan said Broderick Jones will be a left tackle eventually, which to me was saying, maybe not this year.
Yeah.
In terms of the free agent receivers, not sure on, was Chark teammates with Dante Jackson? They're both LSU guys. I don't know the year on DJ Chark. Not that it matters much anyway, but yeah, I mean, I think what it does is it puts receiver in that top 2-round conversation. And again, at the combine, they'd interviewed at least 6 potential first round picks formally, including A.D. Mitchell from Texas and Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU, Troy Franklin from Oregon. And so there was a commonality of high round prospects and guys with size. They were all 6'1" and above. And again, that's generally more the fit and the look of an Arthur Smith type of wide receiver. So I think receiver in round 1, Pittsburgh doesn't do it often. They typically go day 2. but I think round one is very much in that conversation.
I think it's a lot more plausible tonight than it was earlier in the day.
I think you're right about that.
And now, once again, I think this is a thing that a topic that we revisit with: is the room better? Did they do the right thing here? Once we get past free agency and the draft, I mean, we'll obviously get have a much better idea what that room's going to shape up to be like at that point. So the deal's done, and you got anything else to add on that topic in general? We both agree that we got to watch some Dante Jackson tape. So, I don't want to sit here and say the plus or minuses and all until I do that there. So I think it's fair not to do that. You want to talk about some financials related here?
Sure. Yeah. Walk us through the cap, because there's a lot of layers, I think, to the situation, especially with Jackson, his contract, potential modifying his contract. So I'll shut up and take it away, Dave.
Yeah, for starters here, Deontae Johnson prior to the trade was set to count a little bit more than 15.8 million against the Steelers cap in 2024. As we mentioned several times, 7 million of that was base salary. Another 3 million was a forthcoming roster bonus on March 16th. That's why we were talking that if Deontay got traded, it would likely be before that roster bonus got paid. That happened. All that goes that 10 million that he was set to earn in 2024 gets transferred over to the Panthers now. Now, the other little bit more than 5.8 million of that a little bit more than 15.8 million was bonus proration. So that stays with the Steelers as a dead money hit because of the past signing bonus proration. So they effectively dump $10 million in salary by trading away Deontae Johnson. But wait, there's more. According to the contract of Dante Johnson, at least how it seems to be coming to Pittsburgh, he had a base salary that was set to be $4.7225 million, and he also is due a $4 million roster bonus that's due on March 16th. He was on tap to earn $200,000 in offseason workout bonus, and his contract called for him to earn $1.75 million in per game roster bonuses in 2024. Now, $100,000 of that $1.7 million in per game roster bonuses won't count against the Steelers cap because Dante only played 16 of 17 games. So if you take 1.7, you divide it by 17, you get, at least against the cap, because it's considered not likely to be earned right now, you basically get a $100,000 discount against the cap until he maybe earns that in 2024. The other 1.6 million, if you will, is considered likely to be earned because he played 16 games last season. So long story short, he arrives in Pittsburgh with a salary cap number of $10.5225 million. And we already talked about Deontay saves you what? $10 million that way. So if you take $10.5225 million and you subtract $10 million from it, take off my shoes, carry the pinky toe, the Steelers used up an additional $522,500 in salary cap space by making this trade. All right. So you look at that, you look at all specifics of the trade, and you think, man, all this, and you got a corner that you're not really sure about here. You moved you trade up from a 7 to, swap a 7th with a 6. Is there anything maybe to look forward to? Well, I will say this once again. You go back to the article that the Panthers beat writer David Newton wrote on ESPN, thinking that Dante Jackson was going to get traded. You now have some rumblings. Jerry Dulac just a little while ago tweeted out that he thinks something gets done with Dante Jackson's contract. I had tweeted hours ago that I think that could indeed be the case. I would not be shocked here if by the time that March 16th roster bonus is due, which by the way is 4 days away, we could see something done to the contract here with Dante Johnson. Maybe he withholds. Maybe he withholds. Pushes back, mixes that roster bonus. Maybe the Steelers do some sort of restructure. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is here, and look, you got a guy coming in with if you look at we talk about that hierarchy all the time, at the Steelers hierarchy, and kind of interrupting that. If you look at the hierarchy right now, and the technical average yearly value of a guy like Dante Jackson, I think it's a little more than 11 million. It's hard to see that sticking when it comes to the things. I'm not saying it's impossible. Stranger things have obviously happened before, but I do kind of wonder within the next show or two if we're not talking about some sort of adjustment, either him nixing his roster bonus, or I think he also had 3 void years still remaining on his contract too. So if you really wanted to, I think you could take his base part of that base salary and that roster bonus, turn it into a signing bonus, and basically do, set yourself up for a dead money charge is what you're doing. But you could lower his cap charge that way. But I got a funny feeling that there's more to this story that we'll find out here in a few days, especially when it comes to Dante Jackson's earnings.
I believe you, but what could they do besides take a pay cut? I mean, in terms of restructure with avoidable years, what do you restructure to? There's no years tacked on to restructure to push some money around.
No, there supposedly is 3 additional years on that contract. At least it was on over the cap before he was dealt. So
they're void years.
Right, but you can
still do that?
You can fill them up with bonus proration.
Oh, you can. Okay.
Yeah, it's just that it's automatically going to become dead once a contract void. So you're setting yourself up for a dead money charge there.
I see. Okay.
You're not creating the void years yourself,
sure.
But you're utilizing void years at there. It's
now Pittsburgh typically is anti-void year though.
Sure. I'm just saying that is an option here.
Okay. I see. And then
if they really wanted to lower his cap charge without going the route of some sort of him withholding, bypassing his roster bonus or taking a flat pay cut. And look, for all we saw what happened with the Rams deal, and Allen Robinson. For all we know, and it's not been reported yet, maybe they're gonna eat something here.
That's true. That's possible. I mean, they're getting a talented guy in Deontae Johnson, and they needed a receiver. They've been desperately searching for a wideout. It's been hard for them to sign free agents because they're not a good team right now, and they're probably overpaying in for agency for a lot of the acquisitions they've made. And man, they had the worst receiver group in football last year. There was no juice, there was no speed, no separation. You had a bunch of big guys overall. You had Jonathan Mingo, you had an old guy, possession guy, and Adam Thielen as your number one for Bryce Young, who had nothing to throw to. And so they need to give him weapons, and I think they would probably be willing to do whatever it took to do that and get a guy like Deontay Johnson.
They were already going to they're already taking a high dead money hit with them. Maybe as part of this deal, Omar said, "You guys are going to pay that roster bonus."
I hope so, honestly, to make me feel like there was a little more equitable in terms of what you got back for the guy. I mean, if you're Carolina, I get a chance to get that guy. I think you're willing to eat a couple $1 million to get Deontay Johnson.
I mean, taking him down from a 10.5 million dollar cap hit to 6.5 makes it look a lot more attractive, especially for a guy that you're unsure going to start the entire or play the entire season, and probably most likely could be gone after the season.
Right. So we'll see. I guess we'll find out in a couple of days if there is something else to that contract or what Pittsburgh decides to do.
Don't be surprised. That's all I'm saying. And look, they could just as well leave the contract alone. That's also an option. But man, it just I'm pulling up that hierarchy right now when it comes to APY and all like that. You got that 11.76 just staring you in the face right now above Larry Hogan. I mean, you're bringing in. It's just it feels like it ain't going to stick, if that makes sense.
It does. I don't know if the hierarchy is the thing, because who's he ahead of? He's behind Cam. He's
ahead
behind
of Larry
Minka.
Ogunjobi.
Yeah, but what is Ogunjobi going to complain about? A corner's getting, Ogunjobi, just do your job. How about we play a little bit better? And
I mean, he's had Isaac Sayamala, James Daniels, Larry Ogunjobi. So yeah, I mean that's where he's at right now.
All right, we'll see what happens with Dante Jackson. Any other final thoughts here on this contract? How surprised were you when you saw the news come across?
Yeah, I had to do a double take, make sure it was the right Adam Schefter account.
Yeah, it was an issue the other day from some of the big media guys getting fooled.
But I mean, look, once again, going back to where we started this, got to start respecting the smoke more during this process, maybe.
And shout out Tony Pauline. He had this story at the Combine 2 weeks ago. And I mean, that was a great scoop by him. I know Rossini was kind of the one that made it more of national attention, but Pauline had that report well before anybody else. So kudos to him.
All right. Anything else? We got a lot more to talk about. We got a lot of to be continued, I think, when it comes to talking about rewinding this deal.
For sure. And again, I'll have a breakdown on Dante Jackson for the morning. I'm through one game. We'll go through several more and kind of give my thoughts, my initial thoughts, though. Good athlete, good change of direction, tracks the ball. Gambler, angles have to work on tackling. Didn't see that as a strong suit, but again, I'm one game in and I got to put on more tape.
All right. I'm going to throw some on with you.
Where's Pittsburgh at just overall cap wise right now before anything potentially happens with that Jackson contract? Do you have a lay of the land on that?
Of course I do. And this is pending all of the other deals that we're about to talk about as of right now. I have them at a little more than 17.9 million under the cap right now. So plenty of room to keep going. And I don't think they're done.
And just to touch on that briefly, because I know we're both dying to talk about Patrick Queen here, but receiver certainly could be looked at, corner, slot corner for sure, even outside corner, but strong safety. I think you got it. The safety market's been a bit slow to start, but with how bad the draft class is and still some good safety names out there, I think that's going to be a shoe that drops here soon.
I don't think, I think of all the positions, we rolled off a lot of positions the other day that we thought they were going to fill. And I think, all of them are still on the board there.
Yeah, except for maybe inside linebacker, and that is because it's already off the board in the sense of the big news prior to the Deontae Johnson trade was the Pittsburgh Steelers have agreed to terms with former Baltimore Ravens linebacker Patrick Queen. 3 years, $41 million, the top inside linebacker on the market, still just 24, about to turn 25 years old. Pro Bowler in 2023, broke out, played really well opposite of Roquan Smith. I knew inside linebacker was going to be a target for them. I had said I think the first position they target is going to be off-ball linebacker. Technically, it was punter with the Cameron Johnston deal, but they were going after inside backers. But I did not think they would swing that high for Queen. But frankly, Dave, and you can explain it better than I can. When you look at this contract, it is far more favorable for Pittsburgh than I thought Queen would have gotten.
And especially the way the off-the-ball linebackers seem to be going at the start of free agency and all too, right? And Patrick Queen made it through that first wave on Monday, and it seemed like he was the prize at that point, right?
Yeah, Queen to me was a top guy, and I saw you're right. This market was hot to begin with, and Queen did not. I mean, Jordan Brooks from an average yearly value, and these deals, of course, can be inflated, and you look at the details. But Jordan Brooks got $10 million per year, $330. Frankie Louvu from the former Panther, I think turned commander, got, 3 years, $36 million, and Queen got $341, and it's structured really well for Pittsburgh. So that is equally as surprising as the mere fact that Pittsburgh is signing Patrick Queen itself.
Let's talk about all the good things related to this contract here. First and foremost, the average yearly value comes in at almost $3.7 million, which I think going back to what Daniel Salib wrote, he had it at $14 million. I think in that cap article on Texans cap that we have been bantering back and forth. So, and look, that Daniel Salib's good on contracts, man. And that's why I brought his name into the discussion here the last several podcasts here. Slightly under even the value average per year that he had at nearly 13.7. All right. Now, what's all the big talk about when you go out in free agency and you sign these guys? What's the cash flow look like? What's the first year money look like? What are the full guarantees? Part of the reason that you kind of wondered if the Steelers would be able to compete for really kind of the top prize at this position was, were there other teams out there that would get close to that market price, but maybe guarantee more than the first year, something the Steelers normally don't like to do unless it's obviously one of their own, Minka Fitzpatrick, quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, TJ Watt, along those lines here. Well, here's where it gets interesting here. They gave him an 11.59 signing bonus. His first year base salary is $2.25 million for 2024. All of that is obviously fully guaranteed. The 11.59 signing bonus and the 2.25 base salary. That brings a total of the only guaranteed money, and this is also your first year cash flow spending on him, to $13.84 million, which is only slightly more than his average yearly value of the contract. Normally, when you see the average yearly value of the contract, especially in free agency, you tack on 2, 3, 4 million as far as first year cash flow, because this player wants, not only that guaranteed money, he wants a strong cash flow up front. So the fact that they got him for a first year cash flow of just slightly more than the average yearly value is one aspect that makes this really, really attractive for the Steelers. Second of all, we just hit on it. The full guarantees is just the signing bonus and just the first year base salary. So there's no, you're not having other agents looking back and say, remember what you did for Patrick Queen in this situation. They were able to hold the door as far as what they like to do there. The second aspect of this is there is a 6.67 roster bonus in March due in 2025. That effectively is your emergency escape hatch, if you will. Now, you obviously don't go into these deals thinking that you're going to cut a player a year later, but it's also it's a trigger, and it's a trigger in favor of Patrick Queen too. He now has the opportunity to earn over $20 million in one calendar year from March to March if that roster bonus is picked up in March. But let's say this thing goes off the rails. He's not the guy that you thought he was. For whatever reason, you don't pick up that roster bonus in March. You turn him loose, and you're effectively cost you 1 year, $13.84 million for Patrick Queen. Now, once again, you're not betting on that to happen, but there's that for the player, and there's that for the team when it comes to that roster bonus. His second year base salary, $7.16 million. And then in 2026, he has a base salary of $10.83 million to go along with a $2.5 million March roster bonus. So another final year trigger in there as well, too. The cash flow on this is not, if you're talking about players in free agency go, especially maybe a top prize in free agency at a position, it's not great. It's not great guarantees, and it's not great cash flow for the player overall. And it's obviously leans in the favor of the Steelers there. So there is a lot to love about the contract in general. And then, his first year cap hit is just a little bit more than $6 million at $6.113333. So I hope I described that easy enough to digest there.
Yeah, I mean, is it fair to say, and I'm being a little vague and catch-all here, but it's almost pay as you go, just given the roster bonus structure,
sure.
this contract, right? I mean, it's
sure. I mean, you can get out of it with it being a 1 year, $8 million contract.
You said 3 point? Is it 13?
13. Yeah. What did I say?
You said 3 a second ago.
Okay, I'm sorry. $13.84 million is essentially what he would cost you if you had to jump out of this thing before paying him a March roster bonus.
Yeah, and to have that kind of setup for a 24-year-old coming off his best season at the top of a hot inside linebacker market is really surprising overall. Really, really happy with that. Yeah, I mean, the way that you framed it is right, Dave, and the way that I would say free agency and signing contracts is, you add a player expecting the best from him, you structure the contract expecting the worst from a player. Just you have to do that if you're the team, from a team perspective, to protect yourself. But really good structure and value to me overall. Now, to the player himself, because that's the things that we'll talk about obviously throughout the season and watch for is he's playing his best football in 2022 and 2023. Now, is he an elite level guy? No, he's not. Fred Warner, he's not his teammate Roquan Smith. And one question people have is, how much harm or how much regression could there be if he's not playing next to Roquan Smith and part of a fantastic defense that, Baltimore was this past year under Mike Macdonald? We'll have to see. But I think Queen has certainly been ascending throughout his career, which got off to a rough start. And is, easily the most talented off-ball linebacker Pittsburgh has had probably since Ryan Shazier.
Look, and you rewind back to January of 2022, ahead of the Steelers playing the Ravens. Mike Tomlin, during his Tuesday, I guess it was a Tuesday during that week, talked about Patrick Queen during his opening monologue, if you will. He says, Patrick Queen, I think, has really emerged in year 2. He might be the best linebacker in the AFC North. I know, and this was obviously before Roquan joined, right? I know his tape looks like that. It appears to be that he is doing the things that come with the position, being the hub of communication. Boy, how great does that sound? Moving the front, getting people lined up, communicating with people on the back end, being a guy in certain situations. So we got to be on our screws there. So, yeah, it's a fair question. How will he play without Roquan Smith next to him? I'll tell you this. I don't know how much tape you've watched, and I know our own Josh Carney has a great film room up on him. He's got great instincts, and he's got the physicality to take on blockers, to work through blockers. He's got the speed to go sideline to sideline and make plays that way. He can run with running backs and tight ends down the field in some coverage. He's a ball hunter, if you will. He has a good sense, I think, of scheme. You go back to that interception that Mitch Trubisky threw him. One of the two, I think, Mitch threw
down the seam
in that game to Pat Freiermuth. And you go back to what Queen had said after the game concerning that he had recognized that on tape. I think it was the game against, well, we're going next level here. Glad my wife gave me my vitamins this morning. I think it was against the Jets that he saw that on tape with what they were trying to do. So, obviously this guy, I think, puts into tape study. So far, I mean, there's not a lot not to like about him on the tape, and I guess the real question is how he will play in. Look, he can get after the quarterback too. He gets to the quarterback quick when asked to get after the quarterback. Will take on blockers, that kind of stuff as well too. So, I think it is just now. Can he contribute? He's at such a young age, as you mentioned. He won't turn 25 until August. I don't think he's still developing. I feel feels like going to be in a very friendly system when it comes to the Steelers, and I think from what I've seen, should be a good fit.
Yeah, and listen, we knew that what Omar Khan had said at the Combine, Pittsburgh was going to address inside linebacker, and they got, I think, the best guy you could get, not only from the free agent side of things, but from the draft side of things. Because my take is this inside linebacker group in the draft is average at best. I'd probably call it a bit below. I'm not sure there'll be a first round off-ball linebacker taken. Not that Pittsburgh necessarily was going to target that, but just to kind of give you an idea, it's some day 2 type of guys, top 50 selections in Cooper and Gray. I think Peyton Wilson, the most talented guy, some medical concerns with him. But point being, Pittsburgh, I think, got the best guy they could through this entire offseason process. Now, is he, perfect? No. I think Josh noted some coverage issues. I've always had the joke, there's like 3 good coverage linebackers in football. It's so tough to do with these big athletic move tight ends and running backs in this offensive world. So, is it going to be spectacular at a Warner type level? Probably not, but a good athlete overall and somebody that's ascending and is well-rounded overall in his game. So I'm excited about the signing here, Dave. I thought last year, again, there was a benefit next to Roquan Smith, but I thought Queen and Smith was among the best inside linebacker pairing in football, right next to Greenlaw and Warner in San Francisco. And to make Baltimore a bit worse and Pittsburgh better,
yeah.
Take that all day.
That's but wait, there's more.
Back now.
Yeah, that's a real plus to this deal. Look, and he knows a lot about that Baltimore offense too, doesn't he? A team that you play a couple. Look, this. I don't think Steelers versus Ravens is going to disappoint in 2024, especially with the Ravens adding Derrick Henry on top of it there. So if you're going to swing, look, we've talked about, all this mud they've thrown at the linebacker position and free agency, and nobody predicts you're going to go through the injury bug that this team went through at the position group last year. But if you are going to throw mud, one more shot of mud at the free agent inside linebacker wall, might as well aim for one of the top choices here. And it feels like they have done that. Once again, he's got youth on his side. He seems to still be developing as a player, and it's going to be in a good environment. Feels like in Pittsburgh and all. So on the surface, I don't see how you can come away as a fan of the Steelers finding much to do wrong about this deal.
I'm with you.
Every aspect of it. And look, we try to stay as objective and, look at things at all sides of this thing here. But I mean, everything from the contract to the out next year to the youth to the tape, coming from a division rival, Find me the biggest thing to nitpick here. Now, look, this is a guy that they did not pick up his fifth-year option for whatever reason a year ago, and that could be economics. And you just look at the linebacker position as a whole, and how many. Somebody had a graphic on Twitter about how many first-round draft picks at the linebacker position in the last, 10 years or something? I forget how many years have actually signed second deals with the original team, and it's very few and far between. So, and we'll obviously dig into the tape further. We got a lot of time in the off season here, but on the surface, Alex, I mean, to me, there's not a lot not to like about this deal for Queen.
And I had been apprehensive of signing more free agent linebackers. I've been saying go draft somebody. That's how Pittsburgh builds this thing. But, Omar Khan, I mentioned this before too, did a really good job of, I think, identifying the right people in free agency last year, and Holcomb and Roberts, and come August, Quan Alexander. And so there's some trust I have in him to identify the right people now. And they are higher levels than Mark Barron. Let's try him, and John Bostic, and these guys who are just, they really feel like Band-Aids at best. And most of them didn't even ultimately turn out that way. Joe Schobert, Avery Williamson. So we're in a different class of player and talent here, clearly. And listen, the guy's 24. He's like a draft pick almost. He's almost as young as a draft pick, and he's proven himself and getting better, and that's really exciting.
We're not in the great value section anymore.
Yeah. We're doing full Ritz, no saltine.
We are in Briars, baby. We are name brand, and that's what it is. I mean, it's some of these other guys have been pedigree guys, but they've been in their later years, right? The Miles Jack, and go down the list there and all. But this pedigree feels like he's still got some years and some wear and tear left on him.
Yeah, I think in the prime of his career. Now, again, Pittsburgh asks a ton out of that position, and I think maybe there'll be some, occasional negative plays in man coverage with Patrick Queen, but I think in terms of what you could have gone after this whole offseason view, again, free agency or the draft, Queen was top of the ticket.
And now you're not paying, the byproduct, obviously, you don't have to go into the draft thinking, man, we got to get a off the ball linebacker in the first 3 or 4 picks. If one's there that you really like at some point, but you'd have to be, you really, really like them, then you draft them.
Right. There's options here. Now, I don't know what the future will hold for Cole Holcomb. Omar Khan seemed very uncertain, said he was optimistic he'll play, but if that's where things are at this far removed from the injury, that's a red flag there, obviously. So if we just put Holcomb aside for a second, you got Queen, you have a Landon Roberts, so it's kind of your Mac Buck. Those lines have blurred over time. I don't think you got to do everything as an inside linebacker these days, but that's kind of I think the way that you set things up right now. Mark Robinson in year 3, who the heck knows? He's gaining more trust. That'll be good. And then Holcomb, we'll see what happens there. So yeah, they certainly could add somebody. But at least I think you have two known identified starters in Patrick Queen and Landon Roberts.
Right. And hopefully Cole Holcomb gets healthy.
Right. Maybe he becomes that third add-on that rotates in the way that Roberts was rotating on a more limited snap count last year. I mean, depends on obviously how you divide up base versus nickel and sub, but I think Roberts showed he can play in passing situations last year. He's not just a rundown type of guy because he was kind of the base rotation type player last year. So we'll see. But again, there's options, there's talent. I'm happy with that.
We got a new leader in the clubhouse now too, don't we?
Oh, in terms of what? Leader in the clubhouse?
APY, free agents.
Yes.
We wondered if they'd sign one over what, who was it? James Daniels did. We kind of envisioned because of the cash spend that if they're going to fit one somewhere within there, it would be possibly somewhere between the Larry Ogunjobi and Cameron Hayward APY. And 3.67 million fits him right underneath Cameron Hayward. So this is you talk about the cash spend that we already talked about, the $3.8 million in first year cash spending. That's obviously a record when it comes to unrestricted Steelers free agent. The APY is obviously a new record as well too. So kudos to them. I mean, they didn't just bust the James Daniels 8.33333 by a little bit either. Boy, they busted it by about 5.3 million, right around in there.
Yeah, they smashed it. I mean, I had predicted they would set a record for a free agent contract from an average yearly value, in part because the cap has gone up and that offers more flexibility and prices raised, all that kind of stuff. But that was my prediction. But I didn't think it would be Queen at that number setting the mark. But I thought, had you told me they signed Queen, I thought his number would have been higher than that. I mean, I would have guessed it would have been 15 or so million at least. So again, I think it's a really good number.
I would have thought the cash outlay would have been around 17 or 18 million in year one for him too. Yeah,
the structure to me, I can't get over that. I mean, it's almost to the point where it's concerning of why did you take this deal, Patrick Queen? Is this the best you could get? Because for this to be structured in terms of roster bonuses, I mean, that is it doesn't get better from a structure standpoint for Pittsburgh.
I agree.
All right, so exciting day there with Queen, and to most people, I'll say slightly less exciting news on Monday, the first signing once the legal tampering period opened up, aside from the Wilson news that happened Sunday night. They signed a punter, Dave. For a little brief time, we could talk about punters. Everyone had to talk about punters, and that is just heaven for me. So they signed or have agreed to terms with Cameron Johnston, the former Texans punter, 3-year deal worth $9 million, tied the fourth highest punter in football. Now with also Tommy Townsend, who got $3 million per year elsewhere. So Johnston, the Aussie punter to Pittsburgh.
All right, you did all that. Continue on. Tell us about it.
Yeah, he is Australian.
I have not turned his tape on.
Dave, so disappointing.
He looks like Bill Burr.
He looks exactly like Bill Burr. That is, I think, the thing people know most about Cameron Johnson. Some more things on him. Born Victoria, Australia, played Australian rules football, was drafted in the 4th round in 2011. That career did not work out. Sent up some tapes. Got one of those Australian kicking camps that have become popular. I think Jordan Berry was part of them way back when. Got noticed by Ohio State. Came overseas. Committed there, had a good career, undrafted, signed with the Eagles in 2017, didn't make the team initially, brought back in 2018, became their punter for 3 years, and then signed in Houston and was their punter for 3 years and now coming to Pittsburgh. So he's got that still kind of Aussie flair where some of those, I'm missing the word here, his stroke for punting is a little bit on the shorter side. It's kind of a quicker, the way that you'll see it in that kind of rugby Aussie rules kind of setup, but it's a big leg overall. He's consistent. His gross average last year was.
I was getting ready to say I'm not going to date him. Give me some stats.
Well, I think it's a punting motion. People might be interested in that. A little different. But yeah.
I'm just you're beside yourself here. Do you need to take do we need to take a 5-minute break here?
I might need a cold shower. He likes long walks on the beach. 47.7 gross average last year, which no Steeler in franchise history has ever done. The record is 47.0, set in 1961 by Bobby Joe Green, the other Joe Green. So that's an interesting number. The net's been good. The biggest Well, I should say more positive on Johnston. He's accurate. His placement's very good. He's got a very low touchback rate, a very high inside the 20 rate. The only knock on him statistically is a consistently low hang time. He's always in the 20s. He's around 4.2, 4.15 seconds of hang time, but his net's still been good. So you probably need a good coverage team overall still. But to me, he was consistent, and that's the number one thing Pittsburgh's been looking for is consistency. I think Johnston offers that.
I lied. I have seen a couple of highlights of him, and he's got a nice wedge. That thing bites, man. How many inside the 30 was it? Was it last year or the year? Did you have 30 in there?
Inside the 30 or inside the 20?
Inside the 20. Didn't you have the number 30 in there in the post?
I will have to check. I don't think I had the actual raw number. I had the percentage. He's been top. I think it's
there was a 30 10. I thought I read in there.
I'm sure there was. I'll pull up my post now because so much has happened that I can't even remember exactly what I had written in that post there.
I apologize for not committing
30.
all the posts to memory.
Yeah. Each of the last 3 years, he's been ranked inside the NFL's top 10 in the inside the 20 percentage, been over 40% each season. In terms of 30.
You said, and he had 30 punts inside the 20.
Okay. I believe myself that I had written that, but I'm trying to find out exactly where that ended up being at in the post there.
You said, but that was the only time he missed in his career in 13 games last season. Johnston averaged 40.7 yards and had 30 punts inside the 20. Is that just a typo?
Honestly, I'm not even. What post is that? Is that in a film room or in a different?
No,
post?
That's report. Steelers to sign punter Cameron Johnston.
Okay, I'm looking at my film room, so honestly, I don't remember that right now. But point is, I mean, he is good inside the 20. He limits touchbacks. He pins teams deep. May not pin them at the 2, but inside the 10, creating a lot of fair catch situations. I think the thing that I found about him was just his accuracy and kind of control of the football. Even going back to Ohio State, the coach would say, hey, Cameron, put this at the 8-yard line. He would put it at the 8-yard line. So there's, I think, a lot of precision and control over his punts that somebody like Harvin did not have.
All right. So maybe we're done with the JV tweets.
God, I hope so. I mean, that this team needs it. And one of my other predictions, I guess it isn't that radical, but I thought they would go sign a veteran punter as opposed to go draft somebody and go down that road again. And they have, and somebody that's, I think, proven, established. And if you're wondering about cold weather, again, he kicked at Ohio State, kicked at Philadelphia. I mean, I think he's used to colder elements.
Shall we talk contract with him?
Yeah, 3 years, $9 million. What are the details on that deal?
Yeah, he gets basically a $4 million in total in 2024. He will receive a $2.875 million signing bonus to go along with a $1.125 million base salary. So a cash spend in 2024 of $4 million. His cap charge will be a mere 2.083333 in 2024. So once again, the only guaranteed money in this was not that you're going to cut him, but I think the only guaranteed money in this was the $2.875 million signing bonus overall. So average yearly value of $3 million, and you have a new punter. That buys you a new punter.
Yeah, and I think well worth the money. Not a lot of money overall. Tommy Townsend got the same amount of money, which surprised me. I'm not going to drill on it too much. I think some people were getting maybe a little too up in arms over one particular name. I like Townsend. I wanted Townsend, but Johnston is a quality punter as well.
All right. So and we after cutting Harvin, we had a good idea this team was probably going to attack punter in free agency, and they did.
Yep. So there you go on that. All right, Dave, what else do we have here? Some pro day news as the kind of pro day circuit started last week, but really picking up this week. A couple of notable ones happening Monday and Tuesday. Yesterday on Monday, I should say, was Oregon State with their top tackle, Talise Fuega. Pat Meyer, the Steelers offensive line coach, was out there and then made the short trip to Eugene, Oregon on Tuesday to watch center Jackson Powers Johnson. Now, here's the dilemma of the discussion. Okay, Meyer's there. To our knowledge, Mike Tomlin nor Omar Khan attended Oregon. And we know the history between first-round picks and pro days that attended by Tomlin and Khan. They've had at least one of those men, GM or head coach, at that pro day for the first-round pick in every draft dating back to 2010. But you could argue, well, it's free agency and it's a busy time, and they were very busy today, obviously with Queen and Johnson. So maybe they just decided not to go.
They can do business with cell phones.
So you think, let me ask, put it more simply, is Powers Johnson still in play in your mind despite Tomlin and Khan not being at the pro day?
Well, here's the thing. We don't have enough history with Khan as technically a GM and all like that. I distance aside, and we don't know what and what's the pro day schedule look like tomorrow and all, and the rest of the week. Could there be a logistics thing here? Here's the thing. You would think you can do business. I think business is allowed on phones and iPads and however you want to do it and all like that. And I'm assuming they have cell towers in Oregon and all like that. I would think I'm old school, and I know you are too. Blues Clues here. Historically, although you should not rule it out. You would just think if they really, really liked him and really, really thought that this is a guy that could be there and be the guy, even though they talked to him at the Senior Bowl and the Combine, and they probably know a lot about him already. And yeah, you sent Pat Meyer out there, all like that. It feels like that they would have been there at least one.
Yeah, they did meet him at the Senior Bowl. I mean, they at least have had a face-to-face with Powers Johnson.
Yes, this will definitely test the Blues Clues theory potentially when it comes to him.
I really want to know, and I've been efforting and I have not been able to find it. And if it's the absence of this person, then I'll be looking forever. But was Andy Weidel there? Because last year they had sent Weidel and Meyer to Tennessee to work out or to watch at least Darnell Wright. And you wonder, okay, if they're going to send at least the assistant GM, that might be some evidence of kind of bending that Blues Clues rule a little bit. I've yet to find or see Weidel at that pro day. And actually, you're right. Logistically, for what it's worth, the Georgia pro day is Wednesday, as in today by the time people listen to this. And so we assume they're going to be at that. Now, of course, if you wanted to, you could go from Oregon to Georgia. They have planes and you could do that in a day. But they are, I assume, will be at that Georgia pro day on Wednesday.
So we're looking for an asterisk here, right?
I mean, people can look into it however they want to look into it. Should you take Powers Johnson completely off the board because of this? No, I think that'd be a foolish thing to do. But somebody for the last 15 years could have said, yeah, maybe this is the year it'll be the exception. And every year you would have been wrong. So is this the year it's the exception? Maybe, but history says, whatever that's worth.
And we have done that several times over the years.
Rehearsed that line.
With cornerbacks and Artie Burns, and at some point streaks end,
but it hasn't yet. And that's
at some point all things come to an end.
An optimistic tone for the podcast here. Yeah, no, I mean, at some point it will. Now, and the other retort is people will say, well, they never go out west. And that's mostly true. But for David DeCastro's pro day, and I double checked it today, and there's an old 12-year-old video of Kevin Colbert at that Stanford pro day, along with Sean Kugler, the offensive line coach at the time. They were there for DeCastro, even assuming they weren't going to get the guy. They were still there. I don't believe Tomlin was, but Colbert was 100% there. So the one time they went out west, they took the guy. So they could have done it for Powers Johnson too.
Yeah, if you're look, it's definitely something we'll track the rest of the way and all like that. But just we just like to point out the historical because we love having fun with the Blues Clues and all like that. So does this mean everybody should take Jackson Powers Johnson off the draft board and leave him out of your mocks and all like that? No. But it is notable from a historical perspective, nonetheless.
Exactly. So something to keep in mind. Our pro day tracker will be updated. Believe they had some scouts. I know they had Kelvin Fisher at Oklahoma, and we're thinking and not confirming, but thinking Zach Crockett was at South Carolina today.
Oh, okay.
Those are area scouts. Good information, but not a whole lot of takeaways to probably be had there.
All right. Anybody else at OU, Oklahoma?
Not that I saw, no. I mean, Guyton's the big name there. The center, Andrew Rame, I think is how you pronounce it, did not work out. He got injured at the running the 40 at the combine. There's a slot receiver, Stoops, to look at, but Oklahoma, besides Guyton, didn't have a lot of big names there.
All right. What else do we have to bring to people on this exciting late Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning here?
I think that's the bulk of it. I guess the question is, and some of this may be answered by the time this gets out and people listen, what comes next?
Tell the people real quick about Deontae and the Chiefs.
Yeah, did I mention that? I don't know if I mentioned that or not.
I don't think you did.
Yeah, maybe I did that before we started one of our long pre-production meetings. But Mike Garafolo was saying that before Deontae went to Carolina, that Pittsburgh had at least had a couple conversations with Kansas City about Deontae Johnson. Don't know the extent of everything there or not. Obviously did not occur. Garofalo saying that don't think Pittsburgh wanted to trade Johnson within the AFC to a dynasty team, the way the Chiefs are building this thing, which is probably smart business. Again, you could speculate if they were looking for a corner, could L'Jarius Sneed be in that conversation? Not that Johnson and Sneed would have been a straight up kind of a deal, but that is the report from Mike Garofalo.
All right. What other direction here?
What my question was going to be, again, could be answered as soon as this, after I make the sentence, but what comes next for Pittsburgh in terms of their next move? What do you think?
I think safety. I think especially once a new league. I don't know how many corners still have to are going to be officially maybe released after the start of the new league year, but I think corners on the table. I think safety's on the table. I think wide receivers on the table. What else? I think a defensive lineman is on the table. Now, I'm not talking guys at 13 million APYs or anything like that, but I think modest intermediate contracts. Look, this team has spent a little over $19 million in cash so far. When you look at first year expenditures on these three players so far, and like I said, I think they're going to spend 40. Maybe even as much as 50 million in cash in free agency there. So there is cash to spend, and they're going to spend it. So I think corner, if not one, maybe two. I think wide receiver. I think even though the center market's dwindled, I think you could see a cheap center added. I think I said safety, defensive line, corner, if not one, maybe even two more. Wide receiver, center. What's left? Maybe
partridge in a pear tree.
Maybe a cheap versatile tackle or something.
Yeah, I mean that covers I think all the bases. I mean, the center market, yeah, the centers were going off the board, and Cushenberry and Brewer and Biades, how do you say his last name? Biades, former Cowboy. He's off the board too. I didn't expect Pittsburgh to go after that big money center because I think they want to draft somebody, and they're not going to go spend $8 million per year on a center and then go draft somebody in the first or second round. But there aren't a ton of centers. Even Matt Hennessy's off the board. He went to Philadelphia on a 1-year deal, which was quicker than what I thought it would be. So your top centers right now, you got one of the Connor Williams out there. Michael Dieter, former Brown in Houston last year, I think could be an option. I've looked at Danny Pinter from Indianapolis. He came off an ankle injury this past year. So they'll sign a center. They're going to sign a lower level type of guy. I just don't know who it's going to be.
Right. I think people listening should expect several more signings here within the next week. Most definitely, and most definitely sometime in these first 2 official days of free agency, all the position groups. There's several more players coming, and I think we've hit on the positions overall. Now, once again, have we seen the biggest contract that we're going to see in free agency with Patrick Queen? I think there's a good chance of that. At this point, but I think anything under that's certainly on the board when it comes to potential cash spends and how they like to do contracts and all the needs that they had. So no, they're not done. They're going to be busy moving forward here.
Sure. I'm really watching strong safety. I want to see what that market looks like. Some of the names certainly have been scooped up or retained. Kyle Duggar on the transition tag, but I'm really watching that safety market that has been generally quiet, and maybe that comes alive. You got Cameron Curl, you have Mike Edwards, Julian Blackmon, others that I really want to see where they end up.
Has Whitehead signed yet?
No, Jordan Whitehead, to my knowledge, has not signed it. He's another another a little bit older, but he's an option as well. Jordan Poyer signed, but he was 33. I had no interest in signing a 33-year-old safety.
Right. All right. Where to now?
Probably wrap this thing up unless you had something else to talk about. I don't know if there's any reader emails to get before we close out today's show.
Yeah, let's get to some of the readers here and treat them well. Lane writes in, wow, what a unique offseason it has been for the Steelers with Deontae Johnson traded for Dante Jackson. Do you guys think we will still draft a cornerback? Also, do you expect us to fill up the receivers room? It seems to me like the Steelers are going all in this year. We're going to need to have another good receiver as well as a slot, whether it's Pickett or Wilson at quarterback. If Pickett is even on the team, he says we will need some weapons. I think we answer a lot of that, Lane, throughout the show here. But I think there's still a decent chance that this team drafts a cornerback. Yes. And yeah, I think they're going to add another wide receiver or two in free agency in addition to drafting one. So I think I don't think anything that's happened with this Deontay Johnson for Dante Jackson trade really puts the kibosh on either of those position groups here in free agency.
I'm with you, Dave. Again, corner's a broader thing. The slot corner, which is still an obvious need. Outside corner, I think they probably can address day 2, day 3, early day 3 kind of range. And yeah, receiver, I think they'll, like center, go sign a more veteran guy, not a top end guy, and then go attack early in the draft.
All right, Chris Warren, as always, I'm so appreciative of your draft coverage for many years. You guys made the whole process fun and interesting, even when the Steelers were ultra conservative and at times frustrating. Suddenly we are aggressive and things are moving so fast it's hard to keep up with. If I had my way, you guys would do a 4-hour podcast tonight. Seriously, thank you guys. I really appreciate what all that your team does. Hey, thanks for that. No question there, but we appreciate the fine words there.
Thank you.
Craig Foster writes in, David Alex, with the signing of Queen, can the Steelers cut Holcomb? What are the financial implications of doing so? Does he have injury guarantees in his contract? As always, thanks for what you do. I haven't even looked or inquired about the injury guarantees when it comes to Holcomb and all to be able to answer that and with 100% certainty. So I don't know how much of maybe his $6 million base salary in 2024 has injury guarantees maybe attached to it. And so I don't have a proper, I'm not gonna just sit here and make one up. I don't know the answer to that, but I will tell you this: if they were to cut him right now, you'd have probably, let's see, $3.28 million in dead money if you did not designate him as a post June 1st cap cut. So if you subtracted that, you'd be looking at $4.36 million, I think, in cap savings by cutting him. But to me, it feels like it would be, man, this guy can't play, would be the only reason that you would cut a guy. So, and once again, a lot would probably revolve around, injury, skill clauses and all like that. And I don't have that layer of the contract handy right now, but I would think that they won't cut him, but you got a top linebacker, and Khan was concerned about Holcomb at the combine.
Sure, no question. Yeah, thank you for addressing that. I had a couple questions about that. Don't have an exact answer. It would come with a failed physical designation, I would assume, but that's just procedural, I guess, overall. My assumption, and it's a total assumption right now, is that he'll be one of those reserve pup guys to start the year, and then maybe you get him mid-season.
Yeah, that's plausible there. Wesley Meyer, one more. Hey, David Alex, I'm starting to wonder if Tomlin is built for a rebuild. He seems to not have patience with quarterbacks not named Roethlisberger between the switching back and forth between Duck and Rudolph, Trubisky and Pickett. Then all three this year. Does he have the patience to actually let them develop? I have a fear that they will become the Colts of Phillip Rivers and Matt Ryan, he writes. Also, Kenny Pickett looked the best he's looked in 1.5 games without Canada. He's not been the best, but did the Steelers do him a disservice in development like Dotson and Rudolph? Look, we could have a 30-minute conversation about this. How much disservice the offense of Matt Canada did to Kenny Pickett, how much of Kenny Pickett's, what Kenny Pickett did in college we're seeing on tape and all like that. They obviously went out and signed Russell Wilson for a reason here. They obviously, you talk about benching quarterbacks and all, man, he had no choice but to bench Mitch Trubisky last year. And Pickett's probably back in that lineup if Rudolph didn't play like he played there. So I don't know where the narrative of Wonder if Tomlin is built for a rebuild. Does not have patience with quarterbacks named Roethlisberger. Well, you had Roethlisberger the entire time. So we're kind of in a new era here too.
Yeah, I mean, I think if anything, people could argue that Tomlin stuck with Trubisky for too long and maybe even stuck with Pickett for too long. Some maybe could make that argument. But what I would say is it's not about patience. It's not Tomlin lacking patience for a rebuild. It's the organization not wanting to rebuild. They don't have an appetite for a rebuild. They want to win a playoff game. You feel the angst and the tension and kind of this frustration about not getting over that hump. That's where they want to go. I would say that when you go into this new chapter of your post-franchise quarterback era, it gets weird. It gets messy. It happened in the 80s. It's happening now from quarterback to quarterback. And we'll talk about 20 years from now. Remember that year, Dave, that Russell Wilson was a Pittsburgh Steeler? Remember that trivia? Like, we'll have those conversations at some point down the road.
Like the Michael Vick years?
Yeah.
Did that happen?
Right. I mean, it's going to be like crazy stuff, just weird stuff like that. That's not atypical for teams, all teams like that. Now, to the question, did they do
Michael Vick year? Sorry.
Yeah, like half a year. Mike Vick too. He went by Mike back then, changing his name for old, like weird reputation reasons. But anyway, what I'll say about the disservice part in question is that I think to a degree, yes, because they hung on to Matt Canada for 1 year, at least 1 year too long. Should have been fired after 2022, not brought in for 2023. They were doing that for continuity reasons, which did not work out. And we all saw that one coming. So to that degree, yes. But I mean, Pickett has also just struggled. And there's been plays he could have made and should have made and did not make, which fall on him.
Good answer. Good answer. Survey says, ding. Top 5 answer on the board. All right. It's 11:30 Eastern time. I got to get this up for the people by midnight. So we're going to have to end it here. Thank you for all the great questions. We apologize if we did not get to your question. Resend them, if you will. That's the easiest way to make sure I see it again if you think it's still pertinent and all like that. When will we be back, Alex? We don't know. It depends on how, if this team is busy tomorrow, maybe we have to do another midnight podcast. We'll be back when we will be back. How about that? So anything else to add before I get us out of here?
No, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Yeah, some people are on island time. We're on Omar time. We work on his watch right now, and it has been a busy day. I want to thank our crew, our Steelers Depot team, for a fantastic job. Tremendous day for the site, and we thank you, Omar, for keeping the site very busy and healthy.
Absolutely. Thank you, listeners, for listening to the show. Thank you, readers, for reading the site. Thank you for everybody we interact on Twitter, yada, yada. Alex, thank you. I enjoyed doing this with you. I've really enjoyed these conversations. You don't know how much I do. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button upper right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button upper right navigational bar and follow the directions that way. We'll be back. And until then, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.